Now this watch has turned out to be one of the best and one of my absolute favourite affordable watches that I've experienced. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I'm talking about watches. And I am talking about a watch that I'm always on the lookout for, and that is field watches, especially affordable field watches. Now I have a bit of a struggle when it comes to field watches because I've tried many different variations of them, and although I like the idea of them, although I like seeing them, I find that when they're in my collection, whether they're affordable, mid-range, or even slightly more expensive, that I don't end up wearing them very much. I think that particular style just doesn't seem to gel with me. I like it, I can see it, and I go, wow, that's cool, but I don't actually end up wearing it. Which is why I've been trying so many different variations of these field watches to try and see whether there is one that I seem to connect with. And if I can connect with one that is also affordable, well, a big double thumbs up for that one. Now this watch here that I'm going to share with you today may well be that watch. In fact, it may be one of the best affordable watches that I've come across in a very long time. And this one, the Kingsbury MS4 Regiment, I did buy. I paid for myself. However, when I contacted Kingsbury about them, they offered me a very small discount. And as such, because I did get a discount, I've stuck that sponsored icon up there. And I'm also going to leave a link to this watch in the description of this video. Please be aware, however, at the time of making this video, they are all sold out. And they are all sold out because I think they are a good looking watch that is affordable. But they will be restocking at some point, so just keep an eye out on their website. And when it does come back into stock, you'll be paying $189 US. $189 US for a good looking watch with a Seiko movement that presents really well, and it's a watch that I've really connected with and that I've enjoyed wearing. But I want to talk about that $189 US price tag, but I'm going to do it at the end of the video. For now, let's flip the camera around and let's see this watch that I'm so excited about that I really want to share with you. So on paper, this Kingsbury MS4 Regiment has a lot going for it because it's a relatively affordable watch with an NH35 Seiko movement. It has a sapphire crystal, 200 meters of water resistance. It has this really cool sort of packaging as well as this sort of internal leather pouch. Comes with only 1 year of warranty, however. But what I can say about it is that I have been really enjoying this one because I like the look of it and I like the dimensions of it, and I sort of like that there's something a little bit different about this one compared to other field watches that I've experienced. Of course, you'll also get a hang tag. And although this pouch does not appear to be real leather, it is actually really nice and soft and quite a nice little travel pouch to have with you. And of course, it's also branded, which is nice. One of the reasons I've been really enjoying this one is the dimensions, because the case itself is 38.8 millimeters. The width of it is 12.2 millimeters. The lug to lug is a nice compact 45.9 millimeters. The lug width is 20 millimeters, which is good for swapping out straps if you want. And on this supplied strap that it comes with, which I actually quite like, it is 68.8 grams. Now, as we zoom in on that dial, we'll see that it is all matte black and everything on it is printed. You'll see the printed minute track, second track. You see the printing of that crosshairs as well as the Kingsbury Regiment automatic. But you'll also see that in contrast to that, there is some nice yellow printing on the dial from that 5 around to the 60 with also those yellow dots. And that then is continued with the hands, because the hands are all polished, but you'll see there's a nice bright yellow second hand, which then really draws the dial together, draws the hands into the other sort of colors on the dial, which I quite like. And then there comes the lume, because I really like the lume on this watch. It really stands out. It's really good quality and it seems to last quite considerably, especially when you take into consideration the price of this watch. Now, that dial and handset are covered by a mildly double-domed sapphire crystal, which I think suits it really well. I like this sort of very slight doming. I think it suits certain watches really well, and certainly this one. However, I'm not sure how much AR coating has been used because I don't sort of see too much of it. So if it does have some, it's probably not too much. Now, beyond the general looks and the size, I also really like the choices in surfaces, because that solid bezel there is all polished, has a brushed vertical sort of tops of the lugs, a high contrast sort of polished chamfer edge, and then a really nice brushed side. And you'll see they really do hook down as well. So even though it has quite a compact lug to lug, it also hooks down and holds down onto the wrist really well. Now the unguarded crown is also a little bit polished on the top there with the Kingsbury K. Quite like that they chose to go polished there because again it just plays with the differences in surface textures. And then it has a nice set of knurling there, really easy to grab onto. And of course, being 200 meters of water resistance, it is screwed down. And of course, one of my favorite parts of this one, and it's always my favorite if they choose to do this, is they chose to use a non-date movement. So there's no ghost position. This one utilizing the Seiko NH38. So of course, hand winding as well as hacking. And I always do like seeing how every movement is performing, even though I've seen lots of Seiko movements, because they do differ a lot between them. So let's stick this one on the time grapher and see how this one is doing. So running at around about minus 16 seconds is not perfect, but it is within tolerances of that Seiko movement. We do always generally prefer it to be running probably a little bit fast, but when we put that aside, we'll see that the amplitude is really good. Beat errors virtually nothing, which is something that I do prefer to see because that means the movement itself is healthy. And you can see it is running at 21,600 vibrations per hour. Now I do like their choice of case back. Solid case back for a fairly affordable watch is generally my favorite, especially when it contains a movement like that. Got a skull and I would say crossbones, but it's actually two sets of swords or daggers. Tells you the 200 meters of water resistance there, sapphire crystal, and that it is the Kingsbury MS4 Regiment. So this has actually turned out to be my favorite affordable leather strap that I've ever come across. Partly because of the color. I love this specific color. This sort of, I don't know, caramel or camel sort of color, especially with when it sort of does that and it sort of changes color a little bit as you use it. But also because it's really well made. Like it is proper solid leather. Underneath it's got more of the rough sort of leather there. All sort of leather, really nicely stitched as well. Lots of holes available. The only thing that is noticeable about it is that it is very, very thin. So when you're holding it in hand, it feels very, very thin. However, when you then put it on wrist, it becomes super comfortable and almost delicate feeling. So although when I first sort of felt this leather strap, I thought, oh, that's extremely thin, it actually turned out to be a positive. The hardware on it, however, not my favorite. I think it kind of takes away from the whole experience of this watch a little bit. So realistically, I'd be changing that out, but that's a pretty small thing to sort of say about a watch. And I've certainly been happy with the on-wrist experience of this one on my 17 centimeter or around about 6 3/4 inch wrist. Those sort of lug to lug, that downturn lugs, this sort of thinner leather strap, it feels really nice and comfortable. It's nice and legible, even if you do catch it in the light a little bit with the lack of AR coating there. But I think it looks good, it feels good on wrist, and it has been a really nice experience to own this one. So what do I like about this one? What don't I like about it? And what would I change? Well, let me just say that there's a lot to like about this one. I like the color choice of the yellow added to the dial, gives it something a little bit extra. I like the crosshairs on the dial. Again, just gives it something a little bit extra. The choice of the movement, an NH38, I think in an affordable watch with no date, it's the perfect movement to choose. The overall size of the watch is also very good, and those sort of combination of the surfaces used, the polishing and the brushing. The strap is also really good, and again, being more of an affordable watch, having something that is more affordable but also that feels good is certainly something that's great. I even really like the case back, and I do like the price, and I am going to talk about that more shortly. The only thing I really dislike about this watch is probably the hardware there on the leather strap. It's probably the one that came with this. I think this is something you can actually buy off Aliexpress. It's made in China, this strap. It's like a standard strap, so it comes with a standard buckle. I think if they chose to put something a little bit more sort of better quality, or maybe something that actually suited the watch better, that would be a good idea, and that would be the first thing that I would change about this. I would definitely do that. I probably would say that it'd be nice to probably bring the overall width of the watch down a little bit. Now, I'm not sure if that can be done with this movement. I'm not a watchmaker. I'm not the one manufacturing a watch, but just as somebody that loves wearing watches and has been wearing this one, I can certainly say if this was a millimeter or two less, the experience on wrist would be elevated even a little bit more. But the thing about this one, the only thing that I really like to be changing or like to add to this one is because I like it so much, I'd love for them to have a bracelet option, because it'd be great to have this with the leather, but also have a bracelet. But I really want to talk about the price of this one just a little bit more, because I keep talking about this being one of the most affordable watches that I think is probably one of the best affordable watches. So let me talk a little bit more about that price. So when I first saw this watch on the website, I thought, wow, that looks good. And wow, is that only $189 USD? Now, for some people, that may still feel a little bit expensive, but when you look at the specifications and what you get with this watch, with a Seiko movement, 200 meters of water resistance, and a watch that looks this good, I actually thought that that was pretty good. In fact, I thought that was very low. Then when the watch actually arrived, I was rather surprised by it. Because I know some watches, when I see them on the website and then I order them, I can have some sort of high expectations about them. And even if they are good watches, perhaps I've allowed myself to expect too much from them. This one here, I actually had somewhat high expectations, and those expectations were met. So I've been very comfortable and happy with that price tag for this watch. If you want to buy something else that is as good as this watch for the same sort of money, the only other place I could direct you to is Aliexpress. And I do like Aliexpress watches. I have nothing against them whatsoever, but there is something about Aliexpress watches that make me feel like I bought a really cool Aliexpress watch that has good specifications and I got good value. It's a different experience when I'm wearing a micro brand watch. And I do consider this a micro brand. It is a micro brand from Canada. And I understand that the watch is most likely made in China, probably in similar factories to the Aliexpress watches, but so are most micro brands. And that doesn't bother me too much. But there is a difference in on-wrist experience for me with a micro brand versus an Aliexpress watch. And I think that gives it something a little bit extra. There are some Aliexpress watches out there that are probably finished a little bit better and may offer better value. But I think if you want a really cool looking field watch with a bit of a difference from a micro brand, then I have not found anything else out there that matches this particular watch. Guys, I really do appreciate you watching this one. And if you're interested in any other watches like this, I'm going to put a couple of videos here that may be worth watching.